Hello, everyone, and welcome to episode 25 of Creating a New World, the show about the 12 Visions world, a world of wealth, health, peace, love, and freedom that you can help create. My name is Bill Hunsaker. I'm your host, and I'm happy to welcome my two co-hosts. First of all, Bob McCaffrey, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Bill. I'm happy to be here. Welcome, everyone.
And also Sage Katakura. Welcome to the show, Sage.
Thanks, Bill. I'm glad to be here too.
Okay, we'll start with the 12 Visions world. Who would like to read the 12 Visions? If not, I'll reach behind me and get
I got the
Visions
12
book.
visions.
Go right ahead.
Okay. Vision 1, become the person you were meant to be. Vision 2, live the life you were meant to live. Vision 3, feel extraordinary every day. Vision 4, slow down aging permanently. Vision 5, land the job of your dreams. Vision 6, build the business of your passions. Vision 7, experience the love of your life. Vision 8, have the body you always envied. Vision 9, become a genius of society. Vision 10, have everything you ever wanted, be it the free-to-store geniuses and super technology. Vision 11, ride a prosperity wave to riches, via falling prices and soaring buying power. And then Vision 12, enjoy nearly perfect health via soaring medical technologies and falling prices.
Thank you, Sage.
Sure.
That sounds wonderful, doesn't it?
Oh yeah, every time.
Yep. Unfortunately, it's right now. It's just a wonderful idea, um, but it's an idea that we can actualize and create if we all work together and cooperate. So here in the first part of the show, we choose a topic and discuss it and describe how how that will be in the 12 Visions world, and also to some extent how it is in the current world, the world we call the anti-civilization. So today's topic is the U.S. military, and unfortunately, at this point, the U.S. military is pretty much the way it is run today. It's pretty much the embodiment of initiatory force. Basically, our government has searched the world, sought out places where where trouble exists, or has decided things would be better if we made a change there, and unfortunately has decided to use our military offensively as initiatory force to bring about those changes that they wanted to make. And that's just a part of it. Also, the way the military is run, the way it's financed, are all based on initiatory force. The most obvious part being the collection of taxes in order to pay for the military, or the borrowing of money. Basically, forcing us to accept debt that we didn't choose to finance the military, and also the way weapons and other products are procured for the military is also initiatory force, because they basically, instead of having a proper process for for choosing suppliers, they basically reward their friends, and they also negotiate ridiculously high prices, as we've seen in the past. $1,000 for a hammer, those kind of ridiculous things.
Yeah.
And basically all around. I mean, it's not called the military-industrial complex for nothing. Basically, it's there to enrich all the people that supply the military, and also, that's another aspect of all the offensive initiatory force use of the military that we've had in the past 30, 40, 50 years is to enrich the people that supply the military, and also enrich them by having them come in and rebuild after we've destroyed some place in the world. So that's basically, you know, in the 12 Visions world, the military will only be used for protection, because unfortunately, the first country in the world to adopt the Prime Law and to basically create the 12 Visions world will be surrounded by other countries that are still in the anti-civilization. So we will require defense and protection from those countries, because the governments there and the leaders in those countries will see what we're doing, or whatever country gets there first, and I hope it's the U.S. because this is where I happen to live. Will see that as a threat to their control and their power over their people, and will not only attempt to prevent it from happening in their country, but also will probably try to attack us, and because they will see us as a threat. So we will need the protection until the 12 Visions world becomes universal around the world.
Right.
And then there will probably be no more governments, and no more or just governments that are protection only for service businesses, and no longer the offensive, initiatory force-based institutions that we have now.
Yeah.
Until that time is reached, I envision a world where there are no longer countries because they're no longer needed. That's the 12 Visions world. The only reason we have countries now is so that our leaders can divide up the areas of control where they can employ initiatory force upon the so-called citizens of their country. Any other comments on that?
Just makes me sound good about where we're going, and also makes you feel not so good about where we are sometimes. And my friend used to work at he used to be part of the Air Force right out of college, and I remember him always telling me, I asked him, he was an airplane mechanic on an F-15 fighter jet, and after he got out of the service 4 years afterward, he went to work for a private company doing the same thing virtually, being a mechanic on planes. And I asked him, do you see a big difference about the dollars that are spent on parts for these planes? And he said when he was in the Air Force, they'd have these $1 million pieces come over all the time, and they'd spend that regularly just for changing things on the plane with huge price tags on it. Then he said the same parts when he was working at the other private company was so much less, and they were so much more conservative with their money. And you just look at the dollars. If you can look at it on a common sense level, you'd see the waste there, and waste doesn't do anyone really that much good in most cases. And they go through that time and again, and that's just over time. It's sucking down. It's affecting the standard of living for a lot of people, and we're forced to pay that, no matter what. So something that could be improved on.
Yeah, one of the things that I see if they were able to get away with remove the initiatory force, our service people that are serving us would be much better off. I mean, I kind of have mixed feelings talking on this subject because, I was in the Navy. I was a shipboard electrician, and before I got on board ship, they sent me to school, and the school was the equivalent of 2 years of electrical engineering in a college. So I learned quite a bit, and due to that, I've earned my living, all of my life being an electrician. So, I do appreciate what I got from the military there. But there are so many ways that it could be much better. I mean, if they did away with this initiatory force and these ridiculous prices they're paying for the parts, they could afford to give their military people a little bit better salary, give them the benefits that they and their families deserve, and give them a little bit better lifestyle for their families. I mean, unfortunately, a lot of military people, especially when they first get in, they're living very close to the poverty level. And, you know, they're separated, and so they can't be there to assist their family and do the things they have to do. And it makes it very difficult for them. So, you know, I definitely see benefits to people in the military once we eliminate that initiatory force. That's all I have to say at this time.
Bob, where the money that goes to just looking at it like a business too. There's some companies that don't treat their employees that great. The employees leave. You have that competitive dynamic there if it was run that way. So people they'd have to do a better job, or they're not going to keep the servicemen there.
Right.
And I picture competing service companies, competing governments, if you will, you know, competing
Right.
Defensive forces, and then they could to go to the other operations that might reward, just like Southwest Airlines. They run such a great organization that their employees like willingly join there, and they tell their friends to come get jobs there. And also the tax benefit from the prime wall being in place would affect that business itself. It would make all those defensive businesses do a better job, because I know as a business owner, and I see it all over the place, we're so hampered down by taxes. The owners, it's insane how much we have to account for in taxes and paying our employees what we pay them, and then paying a tax on top of that. But that could all gone to all those benefits that employees are looking for, the health care. I'd so much rather pay for an awesome health care plan rather than give it to year after year for the establishment that doesn't really, I don't see the net benefit they're giving us, but we have to pay them, or they'll shut down our business.
Yeah.
Of course, the other aspect of this is the way that our servicemen are treated once they return and they leave the service. I think the only word to use for that is it's a disgrace. I mean, basically, our government asks so much of these people, and then they give them so little in return. I mean, basically, the Veterans Administration is a healthcare system where it's almost like the worst aspects of socialized medicine, where the government provides and controls every aspect of healthcare. I've read stories of veterans returning, going to the VA and having to wait 6 months or longer to even be seen by a doctor because it's so poorly run. And also yes, Sage?
Sorry guys, I'll be right back.
No problem. And we see so many homeless veterans, which is also a disgrace. It's almost like we use the government uses them and then they just throw them away.
Yeah.
And it's a very sad reflection on us as a group of people, that most people just don't even pay attention to that and just turn away and pretend it doesn't exist, but it's the reality, unfortunately. In the 12 Visions world, basically our military will be a business and will be run as a business, and all of those people will be basically, all the people that are involved will be there freely. That we won't have these things where you can't leave unless you do something wrong, and then basically you're punished, and it, it's just a shame the way I think every aspect of our military today is initiatory force, including the way you know, the people that choose to be part of the military are treated.
I think competition, just what we can do about it, is outcompete this fat, sluggish government that's all over the place. And they have so much power to influence others over time. It's not easy and it takes time, but I think it comes down to the individuals all participating in that paradigm. And all those servicemen that are taking it like that, in my opinion, up the can, just taking all those, they're sacrificing their lives, signing on these contracts, and then they, they let the government do as they will with their lives. They're accepting it, so they're continuing this monster. And I know these things, just like this show, it's weakening the monster. That's what's exciting. And you, as an individual, can do so much over time to help. In all the little ways, even participating in the show, for example, creating a show like this, spreading the word and influencing people, just inspiring them to something else. I would look at, as a business owner, I'd love, that's a lot of work. Everything requires work. But if you could show an example of a defensive company or something along those lines where you could hire the people and show them you're going to be dealing with this AC world where you're going to be high taxed, you're going to have to be very creative. But the 12 Visions world makes that even easier, as you support it by having those less tax requirements for no reason. It's going to make your job easier if you do want to make change, to make it much faster. So it's beautiful. It's a beautiful concept.
Yes, and also as described in the platform, which we've read in recent episodes of the show, the military in the 12 Visions world, as long as it's required, will basically be a business that provides its service on a voluntary basis. This will be, it'll be interesting, but as long as it's needed, it will, basically will have, and people will see, because as described in the platform, the military will have the most advanced, best weapons, and not weapons that are designed to destroy and kill and everything, but only to prevent other people from destroying and killing.
And why? You asked, Bill, because you said so? No, it's because that's what the market will demand.
Exactly.
Based on, and that's an easy conclusion to draw, based on what most people in your neighborhood want.
Yes, they will provide a protection service that people want, and because they will be paid directly and voluntarily by the people, they will have to provide that service in the most efficient and economical way, cost-wise, because people are not going to put up with, paying hundreds or thousands of dollars for something that's second-rate, which is basically what we have now, and also is designed for initiatory force, which is, I don't think anybody likes the idea of having, bombs that can kill thousands of people, or in the case of atomic bombs, which fortunately we haven't seen the use of since World War II, but there's still the potential there because they exist. They can potentially kill millions of people, and
as a business, yeah.
Yeah, but the point I was trying to make was that, the military in the 12 Visions world will be a business that requires people to voluntarily pay for their services in order to continue in business. So they will be providing the best protection for the group of people that they're protecting that they can, and will constantly innovate and also do it in ways that are, like I said, that are protection based, not offensive and initiatory force based, which is what we have now. We won't have a military that goes around the world seeking trouble either to get involved with or create, as we have now in the world we live in today.
Imagine you were saying like all the insurance companies, Progressive or State Farm, and you were just saying, oh yeah, well the defensive services I'm currently using is State Farm, and they're great. You know, I haven't had an issue since. And Bob's like, oh yeah, well I have Progressive for my defensive thing, and they have atomic bomb prevention or something like that. And from that competition, just like all those other companies, those companies do their job very well. When you have an accident, you're getting the check in the mail. They're taking care of you. They have to stress on their commercials, friendly, convenient service. Imagine the government was doing that. You know, I don't see that, and I have to pay all that money throughout the year, but I don't see them stretching out a hand. They're instead forcing me. They don't give me any type of customer service. They more just want me to pay. And then the people in charge decide where that money goes, so there's no accountability for how it really works out.
So, thank you for that wonderful discussion on that topic. We'll now move on to one of my favorite parts of the show, and one we unfortunately had to skip in the last episode because of the wonderful, lively discussion. I retract the word unfortunately, because we had a wonderful discussion in the last episode, which took up more time, and therefore we were unable to do what I call Where's the Force? So the topic today for Where's the Force is the internet. Sage, where's the force?
That's a good question. For the internet's awesome because it's you know, they say the last frontier. It's really open with people able to start a website and put any information they want on there. But if you've realized that over time, there's a lot of pressure to become censored on the internet and control over what's said and what's published there. But they also they're pushing on taxes. Amazon.com just started pushing a tax that they have to charge for products sold on the internet. That's forced. I would rather not pay that. And then also that it's controlled. I think when you get the domains and all that for the internet, I don't know the limitations so much about the .coms, the new ones that are available and how they're assigned. I think it's pretty objective and not forced. You have to pay something to it. But I think that the Google even is becoming, it's still not forced. They're a company that voluntarily you have to participate with. But they can search, you can search things and they can choose to show them on their listings as they want in their search results. And they have a lot of control there because most people use Google to search for things. But there are other companies out there, Yahoo and Ask.com, and you can try to search for things. So that limits the force, that competition there. Yeah, I guess I don't see too much force in it. I see the threat of force always trying to attack the internet and take over it. But I don't see, I guess the tax is forced by some governments now, or some big companies that are willing to pay the tax, like Amazon. They're already starting to concede to the government saying, hey, okay, we'll just start the tax ourselves without it even being forced yet. And, you know, I disagree with that, but they're doing that, so that's all I see with the force on the internet.
Thank you, Sage. Bob, where's the force?
Well, what I see is the force coming from the internet. You know, we work with our computers, and I've had a number of occasions now where I've lost a computer because of some virus or some worm or some nonsense like that. And I can't picture myself, individual people that are using these facilities, going and doing something like that just for the purpose of creating problems. My thoughts are that these viruses and things that we get attacked with are coming from somebody that's really deliberately doing it, and somebody that's going to be benefiting because of the fact that you have to replace your computer, or you got to replace your the program that's on your computer, or whatever it is you have to do. I mean, this is just a way of them creating more areas for them to get revenue, you know, by having you replace your computer. I mean, it works out now where I pretty much had to replace a computer about every 3 to 5 years. You know, and not because I felt the computer wasn't working, but because something attacked, I wasn't able to use it anymore. So to me, that's some kind of force. I don't know where it's coming from exactly, but it is a force that's creating problems for us and costing us money, taking dollars out of our pockets.
Thank you, Bob. I agree with everything you've both expressed. To me, there are also a couple other aspects. One, to continue where the direction you were going, Bob, you also have these malicious programs that either directly or indirectly disable your computer and then pop up and either pretend to be some kind of tool to fix the problem they've created, or just maliciously say, you know, send us money or we'll damage your computer permanently. And that's definitely initiatory force and dishonest. And to continue what Sage was talking about, I mean, basically, states have enacted sales tax and also what they call use tax. With use tax is supposed to be, you're supposed to self-report that I bought something in another state and here's my sales tax on that. That's use tax. Of course, we know that basically with sales tax, they've basically made all merchants involuntary tax collectors, you know, for them. And once they realized that there was a big problem because people were buying things online from other states and other places and not paying sales tax to them, states got together and created coalitions where they share information and they force businesses to pay taxes to all of them, no matter where the item is bought or where the person who bought it is. So if you happen to live in a state that doesn't charge sales tax, and unfortunately there's fewer and fewer every year, and and you know, you buy something in a state where they do charge sales tax, now by law the company you buy it from is required to report it and to collect sales tax from you, even though you live in a state where they don't charge sales tax. It's just more and more, you know, initiatory force basically stealing our money, you know, even though they try to make it sound it's for the social good, it's for the best, you know, the best of all people, but no, it's not. It's to the detriment of everyone when you take their property without their permission. And then finally, the other aspect of the internet I see that's initiatory force is people see that they are basically anonymous and they can just attack, you know, without any repercussions. They can be coercive. They can ruin your character. They can destroy you, and without any repercussions because they're anonymous. You can't find them. You can't stop them. That's another aspect of the internet that's initiatory force. And finally, in addition to everything you were talking about, Bob, you also have, you know, cyber attacks, either denial of service, where you use a machine to constantly make requests at a website to prevent it from being available to do business, and there's also breaking the security on a business's website and stealing information, including people's credit card information, people's personal information, people's medical histories, all those things that should be private and should, you know, and those are the things, unfortunately, on the internet, which is a lot force-free, and that's great. But every year there's more and more things that are happening that are initiatory force, and governments keep trying to find ways. You know, they want to switch where they can turn off the internet if they decide that they decide there's a threat or there's a problem, or they just don't want you to know anything. And then, of course, there are countries that do censor the internet and prevent you from having free access to all information that's available.
Yeah.
That's also initiatory force. Any other comments on that?
I just struck my mind about value, and it's always looking for the value, and the government there's all that threat of force for them to get more control, just like gun control, it reminds me of, and how they threaten guns are bad, they're killing people, and you're saying these viruses on the internet and all that. And it's true, there are people maliciously using things out there that are initiating force. But we need is value, to focus on the value. We need the competitive value to be brought forth by some individuals to correct those. And it's not from the government controlling things, because if they do, that's just, there's no accountability there. And we know where that story goes. It always goes that way, where without that control, without that competitive dynamic like a business has, they won't take the initiative and create the value. They'll bring, government doesn't need to focus on value because they get the returns anyway. So there so many disvalues come in there. That's what happens.
Thank you, Sage. We'll now move on to the next part of the show, which is creating the 12 Visions world. And we'll start, as we've done in the last few episodes, with a reading of the Prime Law. Who would like to go ahead and read the Prime Law?
I'll do that for you.
Thank you, Bob. Go ahead.
Okay, the Prime Law, the fundamental of protection. The preamble. The purpose of human life is to prosper and live happily. The function of government is to provide the conditions that let individuals fulfill that purpose. The Prime Law guarantees those conditions by forbidding the use of initiatory force, fraud, coercion by any person, group against any individual, property, or contract. Article 1. No person, group of persons, or government shall initiate force, threat of force, or fraud against any individual, self, property, or contract. Article 2. Force is morally and legally justified only for protection from those who violate Article 1. No exceptions shall exist for Article 1 and 2. The Prime Law is a fundamental natural law of protection that directs all decisions and actions of the 12 Visions Party. The Prime Law may not be amended.
Thank you, Bob. We're going to continue our reading of the 12 Visions Party National Platform, and we're now reading on page 28, the section titled Wealth Money Supply. Who would like to read that?
I'm just getting there. Wealth money supply, you said, right?
Wealth Money Supply.
Okay, yep. First, the obvious. Money flows into Hamilton, America from immigrating business owners, investors, and wealthy dynasties. Second, those value job creators and investors create new wealth. That unprecedented rise in money and wealth, that tsunami of prosperity, flows into the country of no taxes. Sister country America suffers a great loss of money and wealth, and whatever money and wealth are left flow into Hamilton, America. Indeed, American business owners and investors want nothing to do with rising taxes, especially when Hamilton, America is an option. And as if the tsunami of wealth and prosperity are not enough, another remarkable phenomenon of good fortune happens in Hamilton, America. Never before has any country entered into the great technological revolution. The forerunners, the clouds before the great technological storm, were the computer and information revolutions, during which costs collapsed to fractions and buying power multiplied 1,000-fold, making all consumers in those industries essentially rich. Yet unlike deflation, in which prices are driven down because of less and less buyers due to increasing poverty, the great technological revolution enjoys more and more buyers due to increasing wealth. Indeed, rapidly falling prices in the great technological revolution make all Hamilton, America citizens wealthy and add never before seen new wealth to the new and booming nation. Should I go on?
Is that the end of the section?
That's
Yeah.
the end of that one. Yeah. Man.
Okay, let's go. How long is the next section? Unfortunately, my
it's-
reader isn't displaying any page but the first page I put up. Go ahead.
Okay. It's really short. Retirement. The new era of the great technological revolution in Hamilton, America multiplies buying power manyfold, making its citizens wealthy. Soaring buying power makes retired seniors, for the first time, wealthier than when they were working and earning. No country has ever experienced such a phenomenon in which the retired seniors live with a higher standard of living than their working years. Indeed, the Hamilton American standard of living increases at a rapid rate as super rapidly advancing new technologies drive up values while driving down prices. America, on the other hand, falls into a catastrophic era. As retirement funds and pension plans fall apart, Social Security and Medicare do too. Poverty strikes the elderly first as the financial crisis worsens. And then the next step would be jobs.
Okay, I think we'll stop there and discuss those. Yes, that, and also that's kind of prophetic because that's really what's happening now. Pensions are collapsing all over the country because they're based on the economy, which has been very volatile, and especially during the recession, as they keep insisting on calling it, in 2007, 2008.
Yeah.
That wiped out a lot of pensions, and I'm concerned that there won't be any pensions when I'm ready to when I reach retirement age. Let me put it that way. And for those reasons, I don't intend to retire. I intend to work myself into a business I can do no matter how much my physical condition deteriorates until the time that we reach the point where we have true health care that helps people live longer and more, longer lives and better lives rather than what we have today, where we do live longer, but we don't live better. By the time you reach your 70s, unless you have very good genetics, you usually have a lot of physical health problems.
Yeah, usually.
And even though you may live 5, 10, 15, 20 years longer, you live with those health problems.
And the quality of life is so diminished, and that's not needed. At least in my idea, and there are people that have lived healthy, so we're not needing that.
And on the topic of money supply, there's many aspects to it in the world we live in today. One is that I do not like the idea of electronic money because we do not have the technology where the individual can control their money. I mean, we've seen what happens in places like, I believe it's Greece. Basically, they closed the banks and didn't allow people any access to their money. And several places, not just Greece, I think also in Egypt, or I'm not sure I remember correctly, but basically they said, oh, you have $100,000 in savings? Guess what? Now you only have $50,000 in savings.
Imagine that. That's crazy.
And also, because we live in a world where, every year there's inflation. Because of that, every year the money you have is worth less and less. I mean, I feel like today I am numerically earning the most money I ever have in my life, but I think it's worth less than back in the 80s and 90s when I was making $4 or $5 an hour, because the buying power of that money has decreased so much, that it's basically, it's basically I'm earning less as far as buying power goes than I did when I was in my 20s and only earning $4 or $5 an hour.
It's all relative and keeps going up.
Yep. And I'm sorry. Go ahead, Sage.
I just to take control, like you were talking about pensions of your own future it's required now pretty much with those, like you said, the volatility of the stock market. You can play that game, but it's very risky. And the true one way that's really gonna it's risky too, but at least you get the rewards and can control them and manipulate them to your advantage when you have a business of your own creating value.
Mhm.
And you're collecting the dollars from that. It's not easy, but once you get it, as we've talked about on other shows, our minds are meant for that type of. They can excel at that, and then you can have a great time creating that wealth eventually. And we're starting to experience that, all of us on the show, which is exciting.
Mhm. I mean, for me personally, I would prefer to have either, and I am trying to create a business that will provide me income, no matter no matter how the economy changes, how the stock market changes, and we could also talk about the stock market, which is based on the idea that we have corporations that are legally people, which is ridiculous. A business is not a person. A business is something that the business owners own. It's not a person, and that's ridiculous. But we have basically the idea that paying your stockholders is more important than providing a good product. And
Yeah.
that gives people the mindset that it doesn't matter if I'm selling food that that hurts people. I'm making a profit for my stockholders.
Yeah. Right.
Just to provide one obvious example.
Mhm.
And we live now in a world of suppressed and outmoded technologies. I mean, the internal combustion engine, even though they've made minor tweaks and improvements along the way, that's basically an outmoded technology. But because the government has created so many restrictions on creating new technologies, technologies based on hydrogen fuel or other ways of converting material into energy, that we're basically still using a technology that, even though it does less so than it did before, continues to pollute our environment and continues to use a fuel that's in very limited supply and getting more and more limited. Even though we've reached kind of a stasis, we did have a period of time where that fuel became very expensive, and it could become very expensive again at any time.
It's already starting to climb again.
Yep, I've noticed that. I mean, and it didn't even get as low as it did the last time it went down.
Right.
And we could see $3-4 a gallon gas anytime. I mean,
Yeah.
after the last time it went down, it shot up almost $1 a gallon in a short period of time, and I expect it to do the same thing this time. I expect to be back up to $2.40, $2.50 within a month or so. I would be very happy if it doesn't happen, but that's what I expect. And that's the world we live in, where we have, unfortunately. But back to the point I was trying to make, I would rather have actual precious metal than these pieces of paper that the government gives us and tells us is money, because every year those pieces of paper are worth less and less.
Because they can control the print more for no reason.
Right.
All in. Yeah.
Yeah. And their response to a problem in the economy is to print more money, which makes it worse because more money causes inflation. That's the cause of inflation.
Yeah.
Because if you create more money, every piece of money is worth less.
Yeah. Right. And that crazy idea, it's such an illusion that you think that you're having more to circulate the money by splintering it up, so it'll help the economy somehow. It's the same value, but you're splitting it up. It's meaningless. It's just more units, but it doesn't matter when there are more units and they're all worth the same amount still. So.
Yep, I agree 100%. It's just unfortunate that this is one aspect of the world we live in, and because the money's worth less and less, it makes it harder and harder for people to pay off the debts that they've incurred.
Yeah.
Just in trying to live their life. I'm at the point now where I will never own a house unless I have sufficient cash to buy it outright.
Oh, okay.
I will not accept a mortgage because a mortgage gives the bank the ability to take your property away from you.
Yeah.
Whereas if you buy it outright, the only entity that can take your property away from you is the government if you choose not to pay their imposed property taxes.
Right.
So, I mean, that's where we live in, and I've pretty much decided I'm leasing a car now, and I'll probably continue to lease a car and not buy one. Even though in the long run it ends up costing more money, still, I don't. I'm not putting a lot of money in creating debt so I can have something that they can take away from me whenever they feel like it.
Yeah.
I mean, it's very disheartening. In the world we live in today, we shouldn't have to finance cars. We should be able to. We should have sufficient buying power to buy a car cash. They did in the '60s when a new car cost $2,000. But we don't now because inflation has made the money so worthless that you can't earn enough money to pay, to buy something like that outright. It's the whole thing is insane, and that's why we're trying to create a new world that is
really
insane.
Yeah, and it as a business owner, you have to be creative and be very conservative in many ways to make your dollar go very far, to create more value at a less cost. It's the game you're playing, and these conditions make it harder to play that game. It's one of the few that I see two ways out. All of us individually play that game and get really adept at doing it and creating our own wealth while the conditions worsen or stay the same. And then trying on our off times to improve the situation, which is things like this show and anything that can increase the awareness of it to weaken this paradigm, this current situation that everybody's living under, in any form that you find valuable, that you think is going to work. And over time, we can win. We will win.
It just takes sufficient people who understand and agree with the ideas.
Sure.
I mean, I don't want to use the word believe because I don't like that word. But if you believe something, you accept it without evidence.
Mm-hmm.
That's the definition of belief. So I don't want to use that word, and I will not use that word. I want everyone to understand what we're talking about it and decide for themselves if they agree with it, not just believe it.
Yeah.
Believing in something is where you give up control to other people, because then they can tell you it's whatever they say it is.
Right. If we can buy these houses in cash and we can buy the cars in cash, even in today's environment, then have the property and have the control and use and still continue on the basics, the knowledge of utilizing that money in a very smart way that can create more value for less cost. And you'll be making a return. Depending on how you're doing it, the product, the value you're fine tuning, and the marketing of it
Excuse me.
works together, and you can do that. There's the Neo-Think Society, which is has a lot of supporters to this show. It has a lot of tools in that society, that a lot of knowledge there that can help. Global Information Networks, another one. And a lot of institutions. So if you can apply yourself, it's amazing also what you can do, even with these conditions, even with the government creating these conditions that, like you said, Bill, are insane. It's like an insane, or it doesn't make sense at times. It's easy to lose heart and stuff with that. It's like, what's the point? There's so much against us, but actually they want you to feel that way and feel
yes, they do.
Because then you can't do anything about it at all. That guarantees victory for them. The only thing that gives us a shot is to remember, and it's true, I think, because I'm learning, the amount of power you do have, and the power that what you can do and implement amazing. And if you think of the great Steve Jobs, Henry Fords, the Harvey Firestones of the world, those guys could implement change on a massive scale. And those are men. They put their pants on, one leg at a time, just like we do. And they took time and they took focus on creating, and they did techniques. They did certain things that you can do if you were privy enough to do them. So it's encouraging. I know all this on this show sometimes you can get bogged down, but it's really just remember the inspiration of it. And it's not inspiration just going on a belief level. It's actually true when you look at it's on the facts of those great through history. Those individuals that made the difference, they did certain things, and if you want to do that, you can make some moves like they did.
Yeah,
Yes.
you can do that today yourself. It takes effort and it takes time, but as we learned through Jen and through Nia, I think there are ways that we can put money together. I mean, one of the big things that I've learned. It took me a long time to learn it, but you pay yourself first. Take a certain portion of your money, 10%, 15%, whatever it is that you decide on, and set that money aside so that you have it available. And like in your case, Bill, where you're talking about leasing a car as opposed to owning a car, I'd rather not pay the lease and pay all those extra charges and that extra money that you're paying for a lease. So rather than do that, I will settle for a little bit older car and buy a used car and pay cash for it as opposed to buying a newer car and paying for it on financing. And even, for example, now with this last car that I bought, I did not finance the car itself. However, I did borrow the money in order to get the car. And who did I borrow the money from? I borrowed it from myself. I borrowed it from my own 401k, and I'm paying back myself 3% interest on that money that I borrowed as I make that payment down. So, if I don't pay it back, all right, what do? They take the money right out of my 401k, which I have already had there. If I pay it the way I'm supposed to, I'm increasing the amount of money I have in my 401k down the road. But still, my car is paid for. The title is free and clear. I don't have to worry about anybody trying to take it from me.
That's based on you building that 401k over time, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
And what I discovered, and I actually started with Pfizer in the 70s, and that I wasn't planning on it this way, but this is the way it worked out. They gave us the opportunity to take and based on your salary, you had the opportunity to purchase so many shares of stock, Pfizer stock. And I said, okay, that's a nice, easy way to save money, And what you do is they take out a certain percentage to cover that cost of that stock until you have the money to pay for the stock. Then when you have the money accumulated to pay for the stock, you have the option. You can either take the money that you've saved towards purchasing that stock, or you can purchase the stock, which I did at that time. And where that worked out for me, I had it a few years, and the stock, the dividends were pretty good. I mean, Pfizer, for the most part, since 1970 even up to today, their dividends that they pay on their shares of stock has been pretty close to $1 a share per year, right? Which, when you have a small amount of shares, it doesn't amount to a lot. But if you just let that accumulate and don't touch it and let it rebuild on itself, it does add up. And the one thing that where I noticed it the most, after I sold my shares of stock, was when I bought my property in Tennessee, I used a lot of that stock money to buy that property. But then when I left Pfizer, I had no stock. I had sold all my stock in order to buy that property. But then because of the time I had with the company, I was issued half a share of stock. All right? That half a share of stock, because I've added a little bit of investment to it, but most of it has just been it's accumulating money on its own. I'm now up to about 150 shares of Pfizer stock, right? Wow. And it's something we have to have the discipline to be able to set that money aside and invest it somewhere and leave it there, right? And the problem is a lot of people can't do that. And what I did is also for a while there, anytime I got a raise, I wouldn't take the raise. I was already comfortable. I was spending what money I was making. When they gave me the raise, I said, fine, I'm going to take that raise and invest it somewhere and put it somewhere. I'd put it in a 401k or savings or something like that, primarily because that gives me the place to accumulate it. But then when I have enough money that I can pull that money out and invest it somewhere else, then I go and do that to do something that's going to be more beneficial. But
imagine what everyone could do if the government didn't take a quarter of our money in direct income taxes and another fourth of our money in indirect in other taxes and indirect costs such as increases in costs of goods due to overregulation.
Right.
I mean, then you would have the money to pay yourself.
Yeah.
Most people, unfortunately, they're in a place where the money they're earning barely covers their living expenses.
Yeah, but the thing is, there's always ways that you can cut back a little bit to put that little bit of money away. And just realize, when did the Social Security start? Somewhere back in the 30s, right? Just imagine what that would be and what our retirement would be like if the government did not touch that money. If they left that money and let that money reinvest on itself, there'd be more money. The retired people couldn't spend the money that's available, that would be available had they not used that money for other sources. But these initiatory force people and the controllers said, "Oh, all this money's there; it's doing nothing. We got a better use for it. We can put it to use here." And I don't know what all the uses were.
Well, unfortunately,
but that's what they did.
It was never designed that way from the beginning. It was never designed as like an annuity. It was always designed as basically a pyramid scheme where you and I are paying the retirement of people that are retired now.
And they're reaping the benefits.
Yep.
Because they're taking it before the people that are retired are getting the benefit.
Yeah. Because there really is no Social Security fund, even though they keep pretending there is. Yeah. There's only the money you and I are putting in.
That's it.
Okay, thank you. We'll move on to the third section, and unfortunately we're going to have to be brief because we're running up against time. I think we started about 5 minutes after the actual time we intended to. So basically, once again, we'll go over the ways that you can help create the 12 Visions world. The simplest way is to just talk to other people about it. I mean, as I said earlier, if you understand and, understand the knowledge that we're sharing on this show, share it with other people and explain to them why you understand it and you agree with it. Also, there are many other obvious ways that you can help. The 12 Visions Party is organizing the 12 Visions movement. And you can get involved at many levels. You can get involved by being a volunteer, by contributing money, or becoming directly involved in the planning in your state. And the way to do that, the simplest way to do that is to go to tvpnc.org. They have a part there where you can sign up, and they will put you in contact with the 12 Visions Party organization in your state, or help you create one if one hasn't been created in your state already. Other ways you can get involved is by supporting this show, either by telling people about it or by financially supporting the show. And you can do that by going to patreon.com, that's spelled patreon.com/creating a new world, all one word. And if you go there, you can pledge to support the show by putting in as little as $1 per episode, and that will help us be able to continue to improve the equipment that we're using to create the show, and basically show us that you find value in what we're doing, and you want to exchange value for that value. But that's all voluntary. The show will always be free to watch as we create it, and the recordings of the show will always be free to watch. Does anyone want to add anything to that?
No, Bill, just the 12 Visions Party. If you, like you said, on any level, if you want to get involved, there's so many ways to do it. And all three of us here, I think you can email yourself, right, Bill, to get in touch with any of us. If you want to, I know networking with like minds and networking with friends and building relationships can help you a lot. Like Bob has a wealth of knowledge just on real estate deals and fixing his finances. That's a great connection to have. If anybody,
yes,
if you need financial to move in that direction, you have a great person to to build a bond with, and it can get exciting and help. All this, yes, that we're trying to do, change this world, but also change your world, your individual life, and those two, I think, so important.
Yeah. And as far as in expanding the 12 Visions Party, it's about all of us that are interested in it to get out there and sharing it with people. Carry your business card with you. When you get on the subject, I find many times I'm sitting at lunch eating, and there's a television in the cafeteria that they have on CNN, and there's always something coming up there, and somebody will make a comment about what's going on with politics or whatever, and somehow or other I'll get it into the area. Well, I don't participate in that. I'm a member of this party, and I give them a card. Take a look at this and see what you think about it. Go to our website, read the information on the back of the card, the Prime Lorem. We'll see what you think about it. And I've had a couple of people that have shown some interest. One person through it purchased the coloring book that we're selling, and she may be buying some more of them. I have another individual that I just gave the card to this week, and I'm waiting to see whether he follows up on it and what I hear from him when he comes back. But that's the only way we're going to get the word out. And you have to take the opportunity when people are on the subject and they want to talk about it, because then their minds are open a little bit and they're willing to listen. But if you just approach somebody and say, hey, I'm a member of the 12 Vision Party and you should do this and do this, their minds are closed and there's no way you're going to get through them. And I only wish I could find a tool like a pry bar or something that I could open up their minds and push the information into their minds. But it's not that easy to do. So.
Well, there's a 12 Visions brochure, Bob. You can look.
Yes, that would definitely help. I need some of them, by the way. I don't have any of them.
Okay.
Yeah. Thank you all. Thank you for adding that, and we'll go ahead and close the show now. I want to thank my co-hosts for joining me. Thank you, Sage, for being on the show.
Oh, thank you as always for putting it on.
And thank you, Bob, also for being on the show.
Thank you, Bill. And I look at this as a great opportunity. I mean, this has the potential to contact and reach thousands and millions of people. And what I want to see is that this show develop to that point where we're reaching the people and we're getting the people out there to participate in the 12 Visions world.
And I also want to thank our viewers, both live viewers and those who watch the recording. If you have any questions, please send them to cnwshow@gmail.com. You can see previous episodes at www.tocreateanewworld.blogspot.com. That's www.tocreateanewworld.blogspot.com. You can like us on Facebook. Just search for CNW Show. You can also join our Google Plus community. Also search for CNW Show in the Google Plus communities. You can support the show by telling your family and friends about it. You can also support the show by going to www.patreon.com/creatinganewworld and pledging $1 or more an episode. All opinions expressed on the show are the sole responsibility of the individual participants and do not represent the Neothink Society, the 12 Visions Party, or author Mark Hamilton. Creating a New World is a production of Integrated Values, LLC. I wish everyone wealth, health, peace, love, and freedom.